So it's been about a year now since Insta360 released this one. This is the Go 3 and they just released this one. Unfortunately, it's not the Go 4, but it is a pretty big upgrade. This is the new Insta360 Go 3S. And as far as the design and form factor of the Go 3S, it is exactly like the Go 3. So if you are familiar with this camera, you might have picked this one up last year. The Go 3S is pretty much exactly the same when it comes to how it looks, how it feels, the flip up screen, the size of the camera. But of course, the biggest difference here is that we now have 4K quality coming out of the Go 3S compared to the Go 3, which only had 2.7K. And thanks to Insta360 for sponsoring the video by sending me this camera a couple weeks ago to test out, as well as a bunch of accessories. And the main thing here is I do want to talk about some of the pros, which of course the 4K quality, and of course some of the form factor changes that I talked about on the Go 3. Of course we don't have it here either because the design is pretty much the same. I will be talking about some of those things I really hope to see in the Go 4. Now if this is your first time coming across this camera, Insta360, this is their second version of this style with the Go 3S, but it's basically a portable camera, but not portable in this sense. You can actually remove the camera itself. And with this update, you can have 4K quality coming out of this tiny little camera that actually only weighs about 39 grams. Now, one of the main reasons why you might want a camera like this is that you can stick this tiny camera pretty much anywhere. There's a magnet here on the back. If you want to hook it up to something like your hat, you can actually drop this in here, clip it to your hat, and get that POV type of shot. And for me, I like to use these tiny cameras for more behind the scenes stuff while I'm out there shooting, while I'm out there documenting my kids. And you can actually keep the magnet, this little pendant magnet here, underneath your shirt. And then when you want to shoot, you just put this on top, hit record, turns red, and now you are now shooting with the Go 3S. You're now shooting in 4K. Now, if you do want that full screen experience, you just have to pop it into what they call the pod, drop it in just like so, and now you're able to see your video here on this little 2.2-inch flip screen. Power it on, and now you're able to see your video here, as well as flip it down, and then you can use it just like a standard action camera with your screen on the back. Now, while this camera sits in that space, very similar to like the Action 4 from DJI and the GoPro, this is not a full action camera because of the fact that this pod right here is not waterproof. Now, while the pod is not submersible in water, this right here, the camera alone actually is. It can go down about 33 feet, which is twice the distance from the Go 3, which is only rated for about 5 meters on that camera. And for those that are familiar with my channel, you guys know I like to document a lot of my BTS or behind the scenes stuff when I do work, as well as a lot of things with my family. I document pretty much everything I do with the kids, and having this option to shoot with a camera that is super small, has 4K quality, I can stick it on a magnet, stick it on my chest, makes things a lot easier even compared to some of the other action cameras. And especially with social media nowadays, a lot of things going vertical, this actually makes it super easy to shoot vertical just by putting it onto one of their mounts. And then also they have a new feature on this one, which is called Easy Switch, that if you want to go from vertical to horizontal, all you actually do is turn the camera. You don't have to change any of the settings on the actual pod. Just turn the camera horizontal and it'll start shooting automatically in 16:9 horizontal, or go back into vertical, and that Easy Switch automatically switches the footage into vertical mode 9:16. Now, while the designs of these cameras look very similar, you can definitely see that there is a larger camera here on the Go 3S compared to the Go 3. We have a nice bump up on computing power on the Go 3S, and you can actually see some of that working as far as some of the latency or delay. When I put a subject in front of both these cameras, you can actually see a little bit more of a delay on the Go 3 compared to now the faster Go 3S. If you're looking at slowing down your footage, you are now able to shoot 1080p 200 frames a second versus here 1080p at 120 frames a second. All right, so I'm here at Iron Man over in Boulder, Colorado. Pretty busy behind me. They just finished up their race. Decided to do some audio test here because it is a little noisy. Lots of people walking around, and I'm kind of curious on how the audio sounds. Testing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Testing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. How does the audio sound? This is the audio coming from the Insta360 Go 3S. Right now, this is the Go 3S right here. Testing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's windy, it's drizzly, and this is the audio coming from the Insta360 Go 3. There's actually someone on the loudspeaker over here. I'm not sure if you're able to hear them. They are behind me. But also, this sun is a little cloudy today. I just want to see how the backlight does. So how is it looking with that dynamic range? This is the Go 3 right over here. And right over here we have the Go 3S. How is the dynamic range handling the sun, which is right behind me? Now with both these cameras labeled as vlog cameras, how is that minimum focus distance? Here's some side-by-side comparison of these two. Now being a vlog camera or targeted to a vlog camera, one thing that I want to compare is the focal distance. A lot of times, a lot of the action cameras don't do well when you're too close to the camera. So I am about 10 inches away from the camera right now. So how is the close focal distance on these two cameras? Right here we have the Go 3S, and like I said, I am about 10 inches, maybe a little less than a foot away from the camera. So how does this, and this is the Go 3 right on this side, how does this compare to one another? The minimum focus distance is a big deal. Like I said, if these are vlogging cameras, a lot of times you're going to hold the cameras really close to your face or close to your subject. So how does the Go 3S now look in comparison to the Go 3? Like I said, I'm about 10 inches away from the camera. Next, we'll talk about field of view, and actually the Go 3 does have a little bit wider field of view even compared to the new Go 3S. Once you switch over from Ultra into Mega View, you still have a pretty wide field of view, but what they did is they're trying to correct a lot of that warping that you normally get with a super wide. They correct a little bit of that so you get a lot straighter edge lines than you would on some of the other views like Action or Ultra View. One new cool feature that the Go 3S has added to this camera compared to the Go 3 is that you are now able to use this with your iOS device, your Apple phone, and set it up as a device under the Find Me app. So if you wanted to locate your camera, or if you want to know where it went, if someone stole it, or you just want to know where it is, you can actually use the Find My feature on the iOS phones, and you can actually add it on there just the same way you would add something like an AirTag. Next new feature we have here is interval video or interval shooting on the Go 3S, and we have a form of it here on the Go 3. But what's nice about this one, and I would hope that it's a software update that they just be able to update this one with, because it's a pretty cool feature as far as those that just like documenting their entire day, but don't always want to have to turn your camera on and off, have to manually do it. You can actually either wear your camera, have it on your bag, have it somewhere where the camera will automatically turn on, start shooting for a designated time that you select, and it would turn on and off so it doesn't use up the battery and have to stay on all the time. It'll automatically turn on, shoot for 30 seconds, turn back off. Next new feature we have here on the Go 3S is we do have a gesture control. That's something we don't have on the Go 3. And if I want to take a picture while this is further away, let me show you guys from this side. I just have to put my camera up here, throw up the peace sign, peace. There's gonna be like countdown, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And there you go. Now, as far as some of the shooting options we have on the Go 3S, we of course have video mode. We have free frame video. The next shooting option we have is time lapse. Then we have time shift. You also have slow motion options. Like I mentioned, we have slow motion. We have 2K at 100 frames a second or 1080p at 200 frames. Next mode is loop recording. We also have star lapse. So if you want to shoot some night shots, interval photos, HDR photos, photo mode, as well as video. A new icon you'll see here on the left-hand side is called Tilt Fixed. So if you are on uneven surfaces and you do want to level it out just a little bit, you can click the Tilt Fix on, and it applies a small amount of horizon leveling. Something to note that if you do use Tilt Fix, it will be cropping in just a little bit in order for it to make some of those adjustments, so you will be giving up some of your field of view. Now when it comes down to battery life, they are rating the camera alone, so there is an internal battery here, and there's also internal memory. As far as battery goes, they're rating this to record up to 38 minutes. However, when you have this right here, which is the pod, and you have it connected because there's a battery in the pod as well, you are now able to shoot up to 140 minutes. Now that shooting time and that battery life can sometimes be a little tricky when you're in the field because you might have some battery here and you want to be able to keep it by itself. But of course, if you need to charge it up, you have to put it back into the case. There is no USB-C port or anything like that for you to charge this separately. You have to go back to the case in order for you to charge the actual camera. The one thing I did notice though that I ran into a couple times was my pod was out of battery. Basically, when you need to recharge this right here, the power from the pod will go straight to the camera and charge this up, and it'll take out all of the power from the pod, which means if there's no more power on this right here, even if the camera is inside of the pod, you're not able to preview what's on there. Along with the upgraded camera, Insta360 also upgraded the app, and there's a bunch of new creative features in there. Now, when it comes down to accessories, I am glad that the form factor is the same as the Go 3. So if you do have this one right here, you can still use all the accessories that you previously got. With this camera, the only thing you're not able to use is you're not able to use the new filters. There is a larger camera on the Go 3S, so the filters will not be compatible with one another. But if you did have things like the quick release, so the quick release that works for the Go 3, you're now able to use that also on the Go 3S. One new accessory that they do have is this one here, which is a reader, which is pretty cool. So if you want to download your footage from your camera and you want to offload it, you can put a micro SD card here at top. You could take the camera out here and drop it into the reader, and you can actually plug it into your laptop or plug it into the camera itself. And then you can pull all of that footage, transfer all that footage off of your camera onto the memory card. Then once you transfer it off, it'll automatically delete from the camera. That way it frees up all of your internal memory. Another update is this right here, which is the magnetic pendant. It's actually very similar to what we had before. However, the magnet on here is a lot stronger than the other one. Now, as far as some of the changes I would like to see on possibly the Go 4 is, like I said earlier, it would be nice if I can somehow plug in a USB-C port here. If it's a closable door, that way it's still waterproof or water resistant. Next thing, as far as form factor goes, it would be nice if it was a flat bottom. Why can't it be a flat bottom? That way I can just keep this on the table by itself. Instead, it's a round bottom for some reason. And switching it over to the pod, it would be nice if this was also waterproof. And keeping it as an action camera, it's saying it's an action camera, kind of a vlog / action camera. Yes, it is more of an action camera if you're keeping it on, as a camera by itself. But just like every other camera, you would like to use this in all circumstances. And finally, the magnets. Now, I know that they released both of these cameras at different times, and the form factors were different, and so I understand that they have to go with different magnets. I wish that Insta360 would have just used the same magnetic system or magnet system that we have here on the Ace Pro with the pod, or at least have the ability to use the same mounts. If we're in the same ecosystem of Insta360, I should, or ideally would like to use some of the same mounts. And there it is, guys. Finally, we have the 4K version of this tiny little camera, the Go 3S. Those are some of the things that I really liked about it, some of the differences here. Also, a bunch of things that I think that I would hope they could change in the next version. If you guys have this camera, or if you guys want to see some different changes or updates to this camera on that version 4, let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. As always, if you guys got some value from this video, a big like would be much appreciated. This is Insta360 with FlytPath.com. I'll see you guys out there possibly with Insta360 Go 3S. Take care.